Fjordur, ARK's newest map installment and potentially the best map yet. A beautiful, mythical, Norse-themed world, and I'm going to be diving straight in with one goal in mind. I have to defeat all the boss guardians before day 100 hits, and there's a lot of them, 7 to be exact. And with only slightly boosted rates, no single player settings, some boosted breeding, official settings mating interval times, and a 24/7 live running server to play on. It's going to be quite challenging. I will occasionally be joined on my adventures by my 2 trusty tribe mates, my wife aka Wife Features, and my partner in crime on ARK Survival Evolved.
It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor.
As this map is the coldest ARK map we've ever had, I figured what better way to start my journey than to start at the volcano, where I can completely avoid the freezing climate. So let me tell you a story. Day 1 begun with me spawning in the wrong area, so I decided to take a little dip into the water and try and fist pump a shark, but he didn't like that. I then could spawn at the volcano, where I was met by the sound of a T-Rex, and it was 2 of them. Naturally, I turned around and headed the opposite direction, Baywatch style. I then began gathering fibres, berries, stones, and all those necessities. I then found a friend on the beach, and we made a tribe together.
It's not a tumor.
Came across this rune, so of course I picked that up for that yummy XP boost. We punched some trees to get some thatch and wood, and we crafted ourselves a nice pickaxe, where I could now gather flint and stone, and we can make hatchets, spears, and some clothes. I then got chased back to the beach where I spawned by a basilisk. He aggroed on something else, and I found these little boxes on the beach, and they gave me some metal tools. It was time to get some boosted levels from that yummy XP from the rune. Crafted loads of wooden foundations, and demolished them for more resources so I could craft more wooden foundations. And it leveled me up to a decent level, where I could actually thrive and survive in this hot place. I then crafted myself a bow and some arrows, and spotted an Argentavis fighting a Megalania. Thought I could take this opportunity to kill them both for the XP and hide. However, the Megalania soon turned its focus on me and gave me mega rabies. Death was now inevitable. I tried desperately to make a sleeping bag in time, but it ended my life. We spawned back in to my tribe mate hacking up my body. Then I grabbed my stuff back. I then found all these packages that my tribe mate left on the floor. I found a nice little hat, so I equipped that to make myself look the part. We then spotted a 145 wild X Triceratops. I began farming resources so we could build a trap for this trike. By nightfall we had our trap up and running. We also crafted lots of stone arrows and a load of standing torches. I then spotted a 145x Ankylosaurus. We began making a load of narcotics and started to make some trank arrows ready to tame these boys. Day 2 began with us starting to knock out the Ankylosaurus. We used all our resources on this Ankylo, but we finally knocked him out and it felt rewarding. We knew this guy would be vital for our survival. Found myself another rune, so I got some of that cheeky XP boost again, and I took full advantage of it. Started crafting stone structures now as I was high enough level. My tribe mate decided to test out our trap and drag a stego into it. He ended up smashing it up, and this drew the attention of an Argentavis. We did kill them both, and we got some nice hide from it. I was also dehydrating very quickly. I then crafted all the essentials, bowlers, parachutes, and some sleeping bags just in case, and fed the Ankylosaurus some berries. Crafted a cheeky forge just to put some metal in as we gradually were doing our thing on the beach. I was out here minding my own business, farming resources to level up, while my tribe mate got flattened by the trike we wanted to tame. On the plus point, he did get him in the trap. I put some stone foundations down just to replace the damaged ones, and crafted some door frames to upgrade the trap to stone. And then we spotted some sort of fire-breathing lizard, and he was eyeing me up. Luckily, he was pretty scared of us, so he ended up running away, and we ended up killing him for some nice level ups. I was about to chop his body up, and then we found another hostile friend, and he shouted at me. Luckily, I had a nice bit of movement speed by now. He was no match for me. We ended up killing him with our Robin Hood bow and arrows, and we got some nice hide from that. Now it's time to knock out the trike. He's been in the trap for quite a long time now. And after that, of course, I gathered some berries. I then was minding my own business again, and my tribe mate decides to get eaten by a T-Rex, which was almost max level. So this was scary. And I did what any good friend would do. I went back for revenge. It ended up with me just being a little snack for that T-Rex. Luckily, he ran the other way, and we kind of forgot about him. Once I recovered my stuff, I decided it would be a good idea to make a raft so that once we were ready to leave we could potentially find a decent base location. I fed some narcotics to the anklo to keep him sleeping and placed the raft down. My tribe mate tried to feed narcotics to the trike, but accidentally pumped them into himself and rendered himself unconscious. Day 3 began with me building a platform for the raft so we can get our creatures on there and search for a base location. The trike had fully tamed up, so naturally I went out on him and farmed some berries, and named him Mike Trikeson. Then I did what Mike does best and started punching a wild trike with my horns. By this point our Ankylosaurus had tamed up, and I named him Flint Eastwood. We were now ready to begin our voyage to search for a base location. We spotted that high level T-Rex from a few days ago and he shouted at us in anger as we left the island. My tribe mate decided to hop off the raft on the trike and make his way there on foot. I reached the base location only to realise I could not make my way up the waterfall on foot with the Ankylosaurus. So I spent the next 20 minutes gathering resources and making some structures, to which I made a nice ramp up the waterfall. Regrouped with my tribe mate, and then at this point we noticed it was freezing cold. This was an element we had not experienced yet. We then began a fight for our spot in the cave. It then dawned on us that this freezing cold was a problem. We then began to panic, smashed down a few campfires in hopes to warm up, which of course gave us a good opportunity to cook some food on the fires. My tribe mate even handed me some hide armor he crafted, which was very nice of him, but we were dying out here, and shortly after my tribe mate perished. I then began to craft some sleeping bags because I knew it was the end of the road for me too.
Have you guys died again?
After dying a load of times through the night, it was starting to warm up a little. Day 4 began with us defending our spot in the cave once again from all those vicious creatures. I slapped every rock in the game to farm some flint, stones and metal, and started gathering resources and making structures, as we really did need to make an enclosure to keep warm in this place. I chucked a bed down and a mortar and pestle, and I made a ton of narcotics. My tribe mate decided to get picked up by some sort of bat, and he made short work of him. Luckily the ankler was better at defending himself. I then got attacked by another bat and contracted mega rabies. It didn't take long before I met my demise once again. I spawned back in and had to fight an army of creatures. It was a good thing we had creatures that were good at defending themselves. I placed a load of foundations down that I made, and an Africana dropped outside the front of our cave, so we made short work of him with flint. We forgot that flyers cannot be used inside caves, so destroyed the foundations and opted to build somewhere else. Of course, the cold struck again, and it was the end for me. I spawned back in, grabbed my stuff, and got instantly hunted down by a bat, and inevitably I ran out of stamina. He was already giving me some love taps, so I decided it was time to fight for my life. I ended up killing him and died instantly afterwards. Day 5 began with me grabbing my stuff back again, and I got into a scrap with a Titanoboa, but I did kill him and passed out instantly. Got back up and chopped him right up. We were struggling to get our creatures in and out of the cave, so I decided it was time to build a bridge, gathered a load of resources and crafted a load of structures. Placed down a few thatch foundations for our main structure and started filling it with stone foundations. I then started mapping out the bridge where we were going to build our main base and started laying a load of thatch ceilings on top. This was the next best thing, as we weren't technically built inside the cave. While out gathering more resources, ran into a T-Rex, but he was no match for Mike Trikeson, and back to making more structures for the base. And already I started upgrading it to stone. I also spotted a Doedicurus right outside our base. This was the perfect opportunity, as having a Doedicurus would speed things up immensely. So I tranked him out and lured him to our base, and he went to sleep right at the end of my bridge. Day 6 started with me feeding the Doedicurus some medjool berries. Tasty. And I finished off placing down stone foundations to upgrade the thatch foundations for our main base. Placed down some campfires and a load of standing torches so we could cook our food. After gathering all resources on the trike, I gathered a load of narco berries too, so I crafted a load more narcotics in the mortar and pestle. I then went out to gather more resources and ran to another T-Rex and punched him with my horns, and he was no match for us once again. Thanks for that hide, mate. I then fed the Doedicurus some narco berries to keep him sleeping. Placed down a couple of forges inside the main base. I was just having a little stroll around the water in front of our base. I spotted this Alphacano eyeing me up. I shot him with my crossbow to bait him down to me. Once again, he was no match for me. We punched him into the water with our horns, and he gave us some nice weapons. And I finally found a decent crossbow. I spoiled loads of meat and crafted a load more narcotics. Our Dodicarus had finally tamed, and I named him John Boy. We then found an Argentavis near the base. We decided to build a trap for it. My tribe mate tried to give the RG a kiss, but that didn't go well for him, and shortly after we knocked him out. I did also try shooting my tribe mate for a laugh, however it didn't register and it got stuck in his head. Then placed a load of the stone walls that we made the previous day. Placed a load more structures down to make the bridge look pretty. Placed down a dino gate for our main base so our creatures can get in and out. And began building a ceiling. And by this time our Argentavis had tamed up, and I named him Quacky Chan to give him a spin now and get some metal. We did find an Alpha Carno and an Alpha Raptor and slapped them to oblivion, and we got some nice level ups. Day 7 and 8 was full of fun and games. We finished our metal run, decided it would be a good idea to hit this Baryonyx in the water to test out if he would dismount us when we weren't in the water. And of course, we got dismounted. The thing ignored everything but me, and I was made into a little Twix bar for him. I spawned back at base, and my tribe mate gave me all my stuff back. Chucked all the metal in the forges back at base, and began smelting. I gathered a load of wood, and created this spectacle to showcase our beautiful bridge. The weather was a little warmer today, so I went for a jog bottomless. Back at base, I crafted a shed ton more structures with help from the trike and the Dodicarus, and placed more of the structures down. At this point, I realised it was taking way too much time to craft all these structures. Being as we lived below the snow mountain, I decided it was time to look for a mammoth to tame. After looking for a few minutes, it didn't take long to find me a nice high level mammoth. I tranked him a few times just to bait him, brought him down into the warmer area and knocked him out there, and once again began gathering loads of resources to make a nice little house for this mammoth that could protect him from would-be predators. Of course, we only had medjool berries to feed him, so it would take quite a while to tame her. After all this farm for resources on the trike, I had a load more narco berries, so I made a lot more narcotics while I was waiting around for this mammoth to tame up. I decided it was time to unlock the fabricator. It was quite late in the days, and we were quite a decent level, and we still hadn't got a fabricator. Went to farm resources on the Anko, got some metal and some oil, even some cooked meat. And while flying back to base, and I ran out of stamina in front of a T-Rex's mouth, and he didn't seem too happy about that. But once again, they underestimate the power of Flint Eastwood, and he got slapped. Day 9, the mammoth tamed up, crafted a saddle for him, and I named him Woody. It was on this day my wife decided to join the survival journey, so I went scouting around the beaches looking for her. Found her naked and afraid. I saved my damsel in distress and invited her to our tribe. We flew back to base and I gave her a mini tour of the area. It was time to farm a load of wood on Woody. The Dodicarus still had a lot of stone on him. We made some more structures for our base. I took a little roll and stroll into the water in our cave, and the Dodicarus is a great swimmer, so farmed a lot of stone very quickly. So I upgraded the pillars on the bridge, placed some more structures down, made some forges and stuck them on the bridge, whacked all the metal in them and started cooking that metal right up. And by this point our base was looking pretty good. I then made a fabricator and transferred all the metal ingots out of the previous forges into the smithy. Began making gasoline and placed down our fabricator outside and crafted a load more narcotics. Crafted a smithy and stuck that next to the fabricator outside. We went for a little dip to gather some pearls and more stone on the Dodicarus. It was now time to get some electricity in this place. We crafted some electronics and a load of electrical appliances and cables. I decided it was also time to build a little bird cage / pen to house our flyers, as we cannot fly them into the cave. Placed the generator and cables down inside and underneath the foundation just to make it look aesthetically pleasing. Oh, the sound of power. I then made my way to the volcano so I could gather some organic polymer from Mantis. Once back at base, we had all the resources we needed to craft ourselves some refrigerators. I also crafted some lights. Placed our refrigerators down and gathered some more pearls to see the day out. Day 10 started by slapping some bushes and taming up a cute little thing named a Lystrosaurus, and I named him Bill. It was a good day to level up, as I did need to make a cryofridge and cryopods ASAP to make life a lot easier, and I needed to be level 80 for that. So we gathered a few runes for that boosted XP and crafted a load of narcotics to get as much XP as we possibly could. I was out farming some wood with the mammoth as I saw my wife get slaughtered by a level 135 Argentavis, and this caught my eye. Instead of avenging my wife, I decided to make friends with this guy. It was too late to get him into a trap because he was already attacking all my creatures, so I ended up chasing him around the front of the base for a long time. Scared he was going to fall into the water after all this, we did get lucky and he finally dropped into the canyon in front of our base in a strange way I've never seen before on the ARK. I completely face planted at the bottom of the canyon. I could not access the Argentavis inventory, so I picked up the wife to show her the face plant. The Argentavis wasn't there anymore and he had teleported all the way to the top of the cliff, which I guess was good because I could access the inventory now. I crafted a load of trank arrows. While waiting for the Argy to starve a little, I made a load more stone structures. Killed a Carno for some raw prime meat, smashed it into the Argy, and I tamed him right up. I named him Argent 007. Day 11 started off by killing an alpha raptor. We needed a lot of cement and paste, so I gathered as much as I could farm from this beaver dam location. In the same run we gathered some metal, oil and crystal, as it was time to make an industrial forge. I then sadly killed some innocent penguins with my eyes closed for their organic polymer. I didn't like this, but I had to do it as I was making hard polymer also, and I didn't have quite enough to make the industrial forge. Transferred a load of metal from the inside of the base that had already smelted, and we had enough resources to make our industrial forge. Also decided to build a dino gateway trap right at the front of the base for all those creatures that we might want to tame. And shortly after we found a male Argentavis level 150. I trapped and tranked him out with ease. We stuck all our metal in the industrial forge to start smelting it. And once again, went to farm some stone ore ludicrous in our favourite lake. Craft more electronics. Craft some spar panels and gunpowder for all those bullets that we needed. Me and the wife killed this high level alpha raptor for some cheeky XP and some prime meat that we need for the Argentavis, which did tame up from this, and I named him Jimmy Talon. We saw the day out, we were on a nice discussion about how the day went. Day 12 was spent crafting a load of structures, gathering resources, placed down a perimeter of dino gates in the cave so that we wouldn't get attacked by little creepy crawly annoying things. I spent the rest of the day making structures for the bird cage and building that thing up a little. Day 13 started with killing an alpha raptor, which gave the new Argentavis Jimmy Talon some nice level ups. We then flew to the mainland. I found some Deinonychus nests, which sucked, so I ate it. I was then flying around, I found this castle and someone built in it, which was my tribe mate. He decided to move out, by the way. He didn't like living with me, so he's moved into his own base. I flew to the area where the griffin spawned, gathered some resources and built a nice trap in hopes of trapping a decent level griffin, and shortly after we spotted the one and only 150 griffin. I baited him to the trap. Well, he slashed my face off, but I was not phased. I got the door down and crawled my way out the trap, then started tranking him out. I fed him a parasaur as a cheeky snack and he healed up most of his health and proceeded to knock him out. I then began gathering narcoberries and fed the griffin. I then crafted a wooden billboard, placed it in front of my tribe mate's base so he would have a nice message to read when he walked out of his front door. I then killed some hyenodons for some raw prime meat and we tamed up the griffin. And of course I named him Peter Griffin. I had to take a moment to experience the beauty of the northern lights on this map. Day 14 I spent the morning leveling up my new griffin and also to help level up myself as I was desperate to make a cryo fridge today. Unlocked the cryo fridge, loaded up the RG and made my way to the volcano as all I needed was organic polymer, and we made a cryo fridge. It's a beautiful thing. I flew back to base and realised I didn't make any cryopods as I wanted to make those too. So I loaded up the griffin and made my way back to the obelisk. I then made a load of cryopods. Flew back to base and placed the cryo fridge. Day 15, I got up nice and early, farmed some metal and oil, shot this Ichthyornis because they are annoying, flew to the beaver dams and grabbed some cement and paste. I saw an Allosaurus pack camp in the beaver dams. I was a little scared, but I went in anyway. Luckily they didn't aggro on me. I farmed a load of crystal and obsidian, made 2 industrial grills so that we could finally cook up a storm, and gathered a load of organic polymer and some oil, made a load of vaults and hard polymer back at base, placed them down and named the vault so I knew where all my gear was, and I finally cooked a load of meat. Day 16 I flew the wife to the griffin area so we could try and tame her a griffin. I gave her a demonstration of how to bait it into the trap and how to get out. I then spotted a 145, it was time. I gave her a good head start as I baited the griffin towards the trap and lined it up. I even closed the gate for her. She got pinned in a corner and died, and of course that was my fault. I then gathered resources and made her a bed so she could respawn back. Started tranking out the griffin. I got naked, placed some sleeping bags down and fed myself to him. We knocked it out, picked some narcoberries. I killed this alpha raptor for some prime meat. And the griffin was tamed. The wife didn't name it, so I named it I'm the wife's little friend. Back at base, I made some more vaults with the leftover polymer. Day 17, I started making more stone structures and finishing off the structure to the bird cage. With help from the Dodicarus and Mammoth, made some railings to make it look nice and pretty, which I also plastered all over the bridge. Far more stone and made more structures. Then heard this Tyrannus roar, which sounded awfully close, and of course he was underneath my building. My survival instincts kicked in. I jumped on the Mammoth and started playing some songs for him. He didn't appreciate that. He came back for a fight and I gave him one, but he came back in a seriously bad mood. I was a bit sad because it was 140 and I would love to tame that. Finish off placing the last structures. It wasn't pretty, but it was a structure nonetheless. Day 18, I added some finishing touches to the bird cage, made my way to the beaver dam where the same Allosaurus pack was camping the beaver dams, grabbed some cementing paste, farmed some oil, back at base I made a load of hard polymer, and I also unlocked the chemistry bench. I made a spyglass for my wife because I'm really nice like that. I also made us some canteens. My wife decided to go for a swim and then realised she couldn't get back up onto the ladder. She was having a great time. I then had to demonstrate how to use the ladder from the water, and she finally made her way up. It was a moment to remember. Then gathered a load of crystal on the mountain above our base. We spotted this high level rhino, gathered resources and made a trap for it. And we knocked it out very easily. On the way back to base I saw this high level Daedon, so I took that back to our base and trapped it. And then I got trapped inside it. He couldn't attack me and I couldn't move out of his body. I called the wife over to check me out inside it, and shortly after I panicked and told her that she needed to go back to feed the rhino some narcotics, as I was not moving anytime soon. And it didn't take long before he started running away and I escaped. I then had resources to craft a chemistry bench, crafted all the electrical stuff I needed, put the generator down underneath the bridge, gathered prime meat from this Alpha Rex, fed it all to the Daedon. I tamed him up and named him Badon. We tamed up the woolly rhino and named it Fluffy. I then started crafting blood packs in hopes to tame a Desmodus soon enough. Day 19, I crafted some metal structures for a greenhouse base. Gathered a load of crystal and metal on Flint Eastwood. It was time to make a greenhouse as we lost so many levels and it took so long to tame that rhino. I went back to the beaver dams and the same Allosaurus was still at the beaver dams, terrorizing those beavers. It was time to give them a real fight, and I ground pounded them, placed some sleeping bags down and had a piranha sandwich inside one. As I was in the area, farmed some oil. Back at base we started making all the greenhouse structures, placed down the metal foundation and started building greenhouse structures on top. Then crafted a load of crop plots, placed some nice decorative railings and made all the piping and taps to give it all the plumbing it needs. Finished. What a beauty. Day 20, I gathered some organic polymer from the volcano and spotted a 130 dung beetle. Oof. Back at base, I made an industrial cooker and some vaults. Placed down the vaults and went back to grab that dung beetle, and I tamed him up. While I was here, I thought I may as well gather some wyvern eggs while carrying the dung beetle around. So named the dung beetle Poo Machine and placed down the industrial cooker. Grabbed some cementing paste from the beaver dams and had a little mosh pit with them also. I then spotted a 150 R snow owl. I could not pass this opportunity up. I lured him back to base, got him inside the trap and started tranking him. I stripped down naked and let him eat me, and finished off the tranking process. Slapped down this Alpha Raptor for prime meat, tamed it up, made a saddle, and we named him R Burgundy. My tribe mate also gifted me this Phiomia at his base. I named him Poo Pants, then took him back to base, and planted some more crops in my greenhouse, and finished off the day making some more blood packs. Day 21 I was scouting out the snow biome in hopes of finding a Megatherium, so I was killing off the bad levels, and then I got Paloviad out of nowhere. I panicked for a second, but luckily I got back on Peter Griffin and we got out of there. I went back to base realising these temperatures were no joke, and I made some fur armour for myself. The wife was killing herself over and over again to make more blood packs and called me in because she was having issues. I walked inside to find her naked and afraid, and I saw a wild Fjordur in the base carrying her death bag, and she did not look happy, and he dropped the bag and flew off. She gave him a good few rights and lefts. I had to finish him off. I had to demolish this fridge to get to my wife's death bag. I was not happy about that, and later I spotted this 140 UT. I gathered resources to make a nice cheeky trap, baited him in pretty easy actually, and placed down the door behind him and tranked it out. We also found a high level Megatherium who was also stuck in a rock. We built a structure around him just so we could trank him out. I killed an Alpha Raptor to get a load of prime meat, tamed at the UT and named her Ubaka. Also tamed at the Megatherium and I named him Average Joe. I then replaced the refrigerator. Day 22 I started by picking up a load of poo and did a spot of fishing to get some fish meat, as I wanted to tame one of those annoying birds that I killed a few days ago. dodo. I spotted this 130, bowlered him, started tranking him, realising he was about to die, killed this dodo and let him eat the dodo. I then started tranking him out again with a god tier shot to the face. I wanted one of these birds because they're good at gathering prime fish meat, and I wanted to tame a baryonyx. I pumped some narcos in the bird, and after looking for quite a long time, I did finally find a baryonyx. I knocked her out, and I also found another high level, which was the opposite sex. This was perfect. This Sarko didn't think so. I had to deal with him, and we knocked this guy out as well. I was now on a taming spree. I then killed this megalodon. Did actually gather some raw prime fish meat for the bird so I could speed things up a bit, and we tamed it up. I named it Annoying Bird is the Word. Shortly after, he caught me this whopper of a fish that gave me lots of prime fish meat. I ended up taming both baryonyx. I named one Mary and named the other Barry. Back at base, I mated them together so I could get a fertilized egg and cooked up the leftovers of the raw prime fish meat. Day 23, I went back to the beaver dams. Had another moss pit. After a few respawns, I had a nice amount of cement paste. I gathered a load of obsidian, and it was time to make an egg incubator. I made a load of electronics. The mammoth gave me a shower because I smell badly. I gathered some organic polymer. While there, I went for a cheeky peek in the wyvern pit, and I found a 165 egg. Back at base, I gathered a load more silica pearls. I was gonna need a lot of them. Made some metal structures, made the egg incubator, and I also made some extra fridges. Placed down the foundations, stuck my egg in the incubator, made a salad from a baryonyx, and we went on a little fish meat run for our babies. The baby hatched, and I named him Rudy the Explorer and spent the rest of the day looking after him. Day 24, I had to gear right up. Made a shotgun, harpoon launcher, grappling hooks, some net projectiles, and a load of shotgun rounds. I grabbed the Daedon out the cryo fridge. It was finally time to tame a Desmodus. Made a bed and stuck down a sleeping bag too. Inside, I started by netting a Desmodus and started killing off the bad levels, and I underestimated how bad primitive weapons were. I got swarmed and they made a meal out of me. I respawned, grabbed my stuff, but this one instantly picked me up and dropped me in the water. He was distracted, so I managed to kill him with my crossbow. I made some hide clothes as I currently had no clothes whatsoever, and the last Desmodus in the cave was a level 150. I sent the Daedon into battle to boost the taming efficiency. After waiting around for 20 minutes, it was time for me to get picked up by the Desmodus. After to and fro him for a long time, we tamed him up and I named him Desmond. Day 25, I loaded up the wife's griffin, saved this turtle from the Dilophosaurs on the way there, gathered some oil and some organic polymer, and I managed to make a load of cryopods in the obelisk. Back at base, I made some more vaults, took the Desmodus for its first trip to some loot caves so I could get some loot drops. I then found this Ravager and decided I would tame it. Took her to my griffin trap, bowlered her and tranked her out. While waiting around, I gathered some cement paste from beaver dams, then killed this hyena for its raw prime meat. Tamed her up and I named her Dorothy. Day 26, I travelled to the lava cave, Clever and the pack. Got a couple of loot crates from there with some nice blueprints. Later on, I was having a scrap with this wild griffin and he was taking a bit of a beating, so I questioned whether I should kill him or not. It happened to be a 130. I was quite close to my griffin trap, so I decided to bait him over. He was quite bloody, so I fed him a poor little dodo and also a saber tooth so he could heal up. And we finished tranking him out. I went back to the loot cave and also found a Ravager that was level 150, so I thought I'd steal him from the cave and trank him out too. Found a nice baryonyx saddle in this drop, killed this avocado for prime meat and tamed the boys off. I named the Ravager Ronnie and I named the Griffin Jerry. Day 27, I hatched 2 of the wyvern eggs, naming them Firestarter and Orange Adrian because, you know, Orange Aid. Crafted a load of gunpowder and gathered a load of metal and obsidian. Crafted some bullets and polymer and grabbed some cement and paste. Then crafted a nice shotgun that I found from yesterday. Whoa, shiny. Went back to the loot cave and found a nice Anki saddle. Tasty. And a new and improved shotgun, which was annoying because I just crafted one. Day 28, I crafted a sanguine elixir from my Desmodus and cared for the 2 wyverns. And I crafted myself a new and improved shotgun and made some bullets for it. I went out scouting for a beaver and found this high level, picked her up with the Desmodus and took her home to trank out. I pumped a load of narcotics into her. I now had to make kibble, and extraordinary is the easiest kibble to make on this map. So I gathered some wild Deinonychus eggs and some honey. By this point I had to pump some more narcotics into her. I grabbed a load of measures on the mammoth and finished off making my kibble. I crafted the sanguine elixir and finished off taming the beaver, which I named Justine Beaver. I finished off the day by caring for my 2 wyverns. Day 29 begun with me in the loot cave once again. Didn't find too much, but I did kill this Alphacana with double XP running. Knocked out this high level T-Rex with average stats. Also knocked out this 145 next to it, which pretty much had the same stats. Me and my tribe mate headed back to the Desmodus cave in an attempt to tame a high level female so we could mate her with Desmond. It was a lot easier with 2 people. We managed to kill off the bad ones, send the Daedon into battle, and after a while we tamed it right up. No problems at all. I named it 2400 health and we took it straight back to my tribe mate's base so we could mate it with my Desmond. I tamed one of the Rexes and it happened to have 9,200 health, so that's what I named it. Claimed a baby Desmodus and named it Bay20. It did not take the damage stat, however. I went back to the Aberration Loot Cave, finding nothing, and finished the day caring for my Desmodus. Day 30 was full of action. I started out by farming a load of resources, all that good stuff, metal, crystal, obsidian, and even some cement and paste, as I wanted to make a grinder at some point. I cared for my baby Desmodus. My tribe mate was out taming megalodons, and he did say he spotted a high level Basilosaurus, and I really wanted to tame one, so I started crafting all the scuba gear I needed, grabbed a bit of kibble, my Desmodus and my Baryonyx. When I arrived, my tribe mate had tamed up a megalodon. Started off by killing all the mantas in the area and forgot I didn't have my scuba tank on, so it was already half health. Didn't have any healing items. I managed to feed the Basilosaurus once with my extraordinary kibble, and while trying to stroke him, I got attacked by a load of mantas and nearly died. And shortly after, my scuba tank broke, and now I was scuba tankless. But I was still out here defending my tribe mate with my life, and while being an absolute hero, I suffocated and paid the ultimate price. I tried spawning on the opposite side of the land and got chased down by a group of angry terror birds. Too bad I'm fast as boy. I made it to the water and gate crashed a shark party. They did not like that. By this point, my tribe mate had made a bed. What a legend. So I respawned back on the island and I managed to recover my stuff back. I went back for revenge on this alpha megalodon as he didn't allow me to join his party. Turned around and my tribe mate's swimming around in the ocean for some strange reason and he gets made into a meal. What is he thinking? I ended up killing the alpha meg because I'm an absolute beast and grabbed a load of prime meat as I was running out of kibble. By this point, I had wasted the extraordinary kibble that I fed it earlier. I chucked a bit of extraordinary kibble that I had left and finished off taming the Basilosaurus on raw prime meat. Mission successful. I named him Basil. Day 31. My baby Desmodus had matured, so I went out to all the local caves to find some blueprints. But I found a Palovia instead. And this Carno wanted part of the action as well. I took it like a champ and killed them both off. Found a few blueprints, nothing too special though. And I grabbed another artifact of the strong, which I already had anyway. We found this low level ARK Giga and we drowned it. I grabbed a load of Deinonychus eggs and some honey and started to make some extraordinary kibble. I just need to finish off grabbing some crystal and I was finally able to craft myself a grinder. I had another baby Desmodus and named it Backup Boy and found this beauty of a 150 Uteranus outside my base. With a little bit of trouble I got it in the trap and tranked her out. Placed down the grinder, finally crafted a beaver saddle and grabbed some prime meat. Finished up taming the Uteranus, which I named Chewy. And now I had a male and female, I instantly made to them back at base and got myself a fertilized egg. Day 32, I spent the morning farming a load of blueprints from multiple caves and came up with Diddly Squat. I cared for Backup Boy and farmed a load of narco berries on the mammoth. Made a load more bullets and crafted a load more narcotics. I found this high level Rex right above my base in the snow biome, so I decided to start tranking it out. It didn't take too long, the stats were not great at all, I didn't even bother taming it. Back at base I made some more electrical appliances and some metal structures so I could light up the greenhouse area. Day 33, I mated the Uties once again and chucked a few fertilized eggs in the egg incubator. I left the bats on mating and ended up finding babies that were starving to death in the pen. They also took the damage stats, so I was pretty happy with that and I managed to save their lives. I called one AAA battery and the other AA battery. Hatched some baby Deinonychus, naming one Bill and the other Ted, and a female called Betty Crocker. I farmed blood packs so I could craft sanguine elixir for all my new babies. Farmed more blueprints and grabbed a load of wild Deinonychus eggs. And travelled to the redwoods so I could potentially find a Maywing to tame. I went into the lake and found this massive otter party at the bottom, and with a little bit of fiddling around with some fishing I managed to tame this 140 female otter and I named her Miranda Otto. Cryopoded her to be safe, placed down some campfires and I planned on camping out for the night with my marshmallows. Day 34, I woke up at the campsite feeling refreshed and I went out searching for a Maywing to tame. Found some low levels and then found a nice 145 and tranked it out with ease. Grabbed some resources to make some gates so I could protect it a little bit. Placed down the gates and then went to gather some raw prime meat and tamed Dilla. I named it Baywing. Went back to some caves to get some loot crates. Found a nice cheeky Daedon saddle, which will come in handy for when I do a boss fight. Chucked all my useless Deinonychus eggs into the cooker and chucked the poor loot into the grinder. Gathered some honey to finish off making the kibble and refertilized my crops. Had another few baby Deinonychus. I named one for eggs, I named the other Eggy, and I named the third 1600 health. Day 35, I walked outside my house and just happened to come across a 140 male otter just having a bath in my lake. So I picked him up and took him on a trip to find some fish so I could tame him up. Shortly after I tamed him, and named him Ozzy. On the way back to base, I found this 150 female date, and I can't really say no to that, and shortly after tranked her out. I mated my otters together, and the baby must have started up because I left the base and completely forgot that I mated them together, and grabbed a load of prime meat for the Daedon, which was enough to tame it. I named her Piggy Smalls, killed off a load of Rexes, and found another high level to knock out, which happened to have the best damage I've found so far. I also came across a beautiful white high level Rex also, and just before nightfall knocked him out, and he had a whopping 260 wild damage, which was massive. I went back to the loot cave and finally decided that it's time to tell you guys I'm not going to show off the loot cave anymore, because I go here once or twice a day and normally find nothing, so I'll only show it off once I find anything good. Did find this rock trait that jumped me, but he was no match for me. I then flew back to base. Day 36 I went back to tame those T-Rexes. I tamed the one on prime meat and named it 354M, and tamed the other on kibble. Tamed it up and it had 361 damage, which I was a bit disappointed about because I thought it'd have close to 400, named it 361M. I then went on a Rex killing spree because I was so angry. I then found another high level, which I began to knock out, and this one respectively had 240 wild damage, which was also very good. I decided to kibble tame this one too, and shortly after we tamed it up, and it actually had higher damage, and of course named it 366 melee. Back at base I mated T-Rexes and the Deinonychus together to get some fertilized eggs. Chucked my Rex egg into the egg incubator, and I got twins. I named one Arnold Schwarzenegger and named the other Danny DeVito. Get it? Twins. And spent the night farming blueprints. Day 37 I begun grinding up my useless stuff in the grinder, and I made a few vaults from this. Back in the loot cave I found a flat leggings blueprint and was out scouting for a Giga, which I did not find. Then went back to lava cave, grabbed the artifact of the pack and clever once again. I finally found a Giga, but it was a level 50. I ended up baiting it to the green obelisk and drowning it, and then cared for my twin Rexes. Day 38 I mated the Rexes once again. I was out scouting for a Giga and I found this whopping level 20, so I ended up drowning that, and a bunch of Megalons stole my kill. Back at base we hatched our Rexes and got twins again, and this time they were females. I named them Mary Kate and Ashley. Grabbed a load of cementing paste and a high level beaver from the beaver dams, and tranked her out at base. I also did forget to feed my baby Rexes, so they were currently starving to death. Whoops. I stuck some berries and a sanguine elixir in the beaver to start taming it up, pumped a load of narco berries in it, and went out on a meat run for my Rexes, and found this 150 Spino, so I decided I'd start taming it. Then the game froze and I crashed out. Lovely. When I rejoined the server I was falling from the sky and died. Don't think that was where I was when I got disconnected. I grabbed my Desmodus back at base and spotted the Spino that I was taming before, and he was running around having a great time. Unlike some, I found my Griffin hovering in the air, so I grabbed my stuff back. By this point it dawned on me the server had rolled back. When I got back to the beaver in my base, she was happily roaming around again, so I had to heal her up with the snow owl and knock her out again. And annoyingly I couldn't use the sanguine elixir on her because I already had done it, so I angrily put some extraordinary kibble in her and tamed her up with kibble. And I really didn't want to waste kibble on the beaver, but I couldn't be bothered to wait that long, and just stared at it angrily waiting for it to tame her. And I named her Beaverly, and then cared for my baby Rexes. Day 39 I started in the loot cave, found a nice shiny mammoth saddle. So I also found a Giga to level 130, so I teleported back to base, repaired my crossbows, brought spares, grabbed some extraordinary kibble, crafted up some gates and a bear trap, and grabbed narcotics and tranks. Placed down my trap, and I was a little bit rusty. I hadn't trapped a Giga in a very long time. My Griffin took a right beating, so I ended up having to switch to the Desmodus and ended up trapping it. And even he took a beating. Damn, I was rusty. Now for the fun part of tranking it out for 3 weeks. We finally knocked it out, and the stats were pretty bad, but I tamed her anyway. It took me a long time to find her. I put the kibble in and pumped a load of narcotics into her. Shortly after she tamed up with a whopping 160 damage, which is terrible, but it's fine, we got a Giga. And I named her Giggles. Day 40 I went to a bunch of loot caves once again and found a bunch of nothing, and I found this party of sheep. They were having a great time. I even had to go down there and get involved myself. Back at base I met the T-Rexes once again, crafted a beaver saddle and farmed a load of fungal wood, and made a ton of fish baskets as I planned on taming a Shadowmane as soon as possible. Back at base I met the UT and the Deinonychus. Started fighting this RG outside our base, and I realised it was a 150, and of course I can't say no to a 150 right in front of my house, so I healed it up, and this was also my first high level female that I could find. So I knocked her out and saw that the wild damage was 300! Honestly couldn't believe it. I then went fishing, which included catching a few whoppers. 2.0s for days. Crafted the sanguine elixir, grabbed some raw prime meat, and I tamed up the Argentavis, which had 425 damage after tame. I named it 425M. What? Day 41 I mated everything. I promised my wife I would take her fishing to show her how it's done, and she caught her first fish. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. I also caught a 2.4 absolute whopper. I was cryopodding them all so I could stock up on a load of them. In the redwoods, we got into a pickle and my wife got eaten off the back of the griffin. Sometimes you just get carried away fighting and forget you got a passenger on the back. Whoops, my bad. And shortly after, thought I could kill this Caprasuchus, but he had different plans. Took me off my griffin and sent me into oblivion. I'd never seen this before in my ARK career. Normally this would strike fear into most survivors, but I was not scared. I showed him who was boss and I floated down elegantly back to earth. My wife literally had no idea what happened to me. I also finally found a decent wreck saddle. Sadly no blueprint. Day 42 started with some fishing and I found a nice Basilosaurus saddle, which will definitely help me out exploring. Found a 150 Maywing in the redwoods. It hid in some bushes from me. I missed my net gun. It flew off and I lost it. I then settled for a 145 which is just around the corner, which I was more than happy with. Tamed it up and named her Aunt May. As I was here I went into the bear caverns in the redwoods to farm some more blueprints and I found the best of them all. Metal dinosaur gateway and a refrigerator in the same drop. By this point we had stored a lot of fish in the cryo fridge. I also equipped my Basilosaurus with that shiny new saddle. Day 43, me and the wife teleported to Asgard in hopes to teach her how to tame a Shadowmane. It didn't take long before I found a high level. I killed off the low levels and the wife placed a trap down. I showed her how to use the grappling hook method. It wasn't working, so I took the reins, baited it into the open trap, used the net gun, placed the walls down and went out of render to de-aggro it. And I showed the wife how to use the cryopods with the fish basket and passive feed the Shadowmane. And it didn't take long before she tamed the Shadowmane. She called it Tita Shoi. I have no idea what that means. When we got back to base, I got stuck in the roof and the wife had to put me out of my misery. Day 44, I mated everything again to get all those fertilized yummy eggs and did a little fish meat run on the Basilosaurus, as I did have a baby otter. Oh, look at that cute little face. I named him Harry Otter. I went to the Aberration Loot Cave and found a Therizinosaurus saddle blueprint, which was very intriguing. This is the first legit boss fighter saddle I've actually found. Spent the rest of the day catching some fish. Day 45, I started by searching for a Giga, couldn't find one, crafted up a load of ammo and geared up, ready to tame another Shadowmane. I started off by killing all the creatures. I couldn't find anything and then I saw this trap in the corner of my eye and it was my tribe mate's metal trap with a 150 Shadowmane just inside. So I was like, oh thanks mate, I'll take that. So of course I tamed him up and it ended up having quite decent health, so I named it with its stats. Day 46, I did find a nice Uterannus saddle and shortly after I found a nice Uterannus right outside my base again. They seemed to like coming back to this location and with no problems at all I ended up trapping it and tranked her out. I had two more baby Desmodus and both had taken the damage stat. I named one Mate Me and the other one Bruce Wayne. I gathered all the resources to make kibble with all the bad Deinonychus eggs I had farmed. The UT tamed up and I named her Eggy. I then finally got around to mating the RGs together. Day 47, I mated everything, including the Shadowmanes, cared for my Desmodus, and got a baby Shadowmane with all the stats in, and I named him Beast. I then did a fish meat run with my Basilosaurus, and remember the RG egg from yesterday? Well, I didn't have the stats, so I ate it to fill my belly. I teleported to Asgard in hopes to find another Shadowmane. I killed off all the low levels I could find, and all the creatures in the area, but had no luck whatsoever, so teleported back to base, and saved all the raw meat that I had gathered. Finally got around to hatching a baby UT, and called him Yolbrina, and finished off the day with a nice bit of resource gathering. Day 48, I did a meat run on Beast as I wanted to give him a go. Chucked another RG egg in the egg incubator and teleported to Asgard. This time it went a lot smoother and I found a high level straight away. Killed off his mates, trapped it out with ease, placed the walls down, and later on I came across this little base. I had never seen anyone build in Asgard before. Their wooden bridge looked pretty cool. I thought it was part of Asgard. I then found two of them camping outside and found a 140 gacha. Tamed up the Shadowmane. I didn't name it because the stats weren't great. Gathered a load of resources to make stone structures and went back to tame that gacha. I ran out of structures, so I just ended up throwing anything at it in the end and lost quite a lot of levels, but who cares, it's still a gacha and it could produce black pearls and crystal, which is amazing. I named him Fred. Day 49, I had some Shadowmane babies and slaughtered them. I cared for Yolbrina and I found this beautiful 150 RG, so I couldn't say no to that. So I knocked her out and went on the hunt to find a wild Giga. I did end up finding a high level female, so I went back there later on, tracked it, and after a long time we ended up tranking out. My tribe mate ended up visiting the area and we got into a little fight and he whipped out his big boy tranquilizer darts, which knocked me for a 6. I fed a load of narcotics to the Giga, went back to base to craft some sanguine elixir and tame up the RG. I also hatched this baby RG and called her Sky. Grabbed some raw prime meat for the RG, and when I got back to the taming pen, my beautiful bird had turned into an ugly Dilophosaurus. He had killed my RG. I slaughtered him in anger over. I flew back to the volcano and tamed up the Giga, which I named Megabyte. Once again, the stats were awful. Day 50, I had some more Shadowmane babies, and sadly had to take care of business once again. I went to Beyla's cave in hopes to kill her with one of my Gigas. I arrived at the cave and realised I didn't have any runestones, so I had to teleport back to base and grab some runestones from the vault. We arrived back at Beyla's cave and summoned her in, and with no problems at all, we ended up killing her. No problems at all. I got outside and Giggles really wasn't laughing anymore. I did feel a bit bad for her. And back at base I cared for the Uteranus. Day 51, I had some Shadowmane babies. I killed one off because it didn't take my stats, and named the other two Jazz and Meanie. Stuck some Rex eggs in the incubator. I hatched the Rexes and shot one in the back. I named them Rex Offender, Small Arms Dealer, T-Rect, and Train Rex. Crafted up some scuba gear and made my way to the artifact of the Devourer cave, parachuting in style. I had my Basilosaurus in a cryopod. As soon as I threw it out, I got attacked by a million sharks, and before I even got in there, the mission was over, and I waited at the surface to heal my Basilosaurus up. Got into the cave and the server died, which wasn't really ideal, but luckily when I rejoined I was still alive as I had the scuba tank on and I could hop back on my Basilosaurus. That was enough for me. I dodged, ducked, dipped and dodged out of there. I then cared for my baby Shadowmanes and Rexes and placed an oil pump down above my base. Day 52, I went out scouting for some Basilosaurus to tame, as yesterday did have me quivering in my boots on fear of losing my only Basilosaurus. And I ended up taming not one, not two, but 3 Basilosaurus. I named one 285M, Ambi, and 21k health. Day 53, I made my new Basilosaurus companions and the T-Rexes. Did a nice fish meat run on my Baryonyx. Had a Shadowmane baby and a Basilosaurus baby, naming my Basilosaurus Freewheelie and the Shadowmane Sahara and Miss Claws. I also hatched some Rex eggs, naming one Rexeter and the other Lexi. Placed some feeding troughs down so I didn't have to worry about them too much. Ended the day by going into some loot caves, finding absolutely nothing. I was desperate for a Rex saddle blueprint at this point, and I cared for my Basilosaurus. Day 54, I found this tasty Basilosaurus saddle, so that'll do nicely for my new baby. Found this beauty of a wild Giga, but I drowned it because it wasn't a great level. When I visited the volcano, I ended up finding 2 high levels next to each other, one ARK Giga and a standard one, which was insane. And you know, I can't really say no to one, let alone 2. I have to tame them both. I flew back to base instantly, cared for my Rexes, came back and trapped both Gigas, and placed some sleeping bags down, which I don't normally do, but it is quite a hostile area. It wasn't long before I got ambushed by a basilisk, so I ate my own words, and I was thinking, no problem, I got this. He hit me with a god tier shot to the face. I shrugged it off and just thought it was luck. But shortly after, he hit me with another aimbot-like shot to the face, and that was me done. It's a good thing I placed those sleeping bags down, eh? Anyway, we spawned back in. It was a bit hectic because I was naked, but with a bit of skittish running around and a few failed mounts of my Desmodus, I managed to finally mount my Desmodus. And we went for round 2, while simultaneously tranking out the Giga, and after 3 weeks we knocked the Giga out, punked a load of narcotics in it, and tamed it up shortly after, and it had the worst damage ever. Just my luck after all that hassle, and that is why I named it. Worst melee ever. It was beginning to get dark, so I started knocking out the other Giga. Day 55, I finished knocking out the Giga, killed this Alpha Carno for prime meat, and tamed her up. Once again, the stats were terrible, and I think that was me done taming Gigas. I was getting very frustrated I couldn't tame one with decent damage. I named it 155 Amateur, but I had a male and female, so I mated them together once I got back to base, and popped out a few more Shadowmane babies, naming one Shadow, one Rory, and the other Aori. Day 56, my Giga egg had incubated, so I hatched it and named her Nicola Rage. Gathered some honey and made a load of kibble with the throwaway eggs that I had. I took Freewheelie out for his first meat run, and while I was out I spotted this Alpha Tuso, which I was up for attempting to fight, but I was a little bit scared, so I went back to base, fed my babies and cared for them. I returned later on to take on this Alpha Tuso and threw out my Shadowmane for backup, which he was nearly useless and just watched me attack the Tuso, but the Tuso wasn't fighting back, so it wasn't too bad either way, was it? We ended up killing it and returned back to base. Day 57, I snuck in a cheeky metal run. Returning home, I came back to some Basilosaurus babies and ended up killing them both because they didn't take my stats. I also returned to the artifact of the Devourer cave for round 2, as I was a little bit more confident. Inside, we came across the usual nasties and some Alpha Megalodons. They were no match for Freewheelie, and we recovered the artifact of the Devourer. And back at base, I cared for my Giga. Day 58 begun with an absolute army of Shadowmane babies, and I named them We Are Family. Scar, the Carrier, Claudia, Sherman Tank, Panzer Tank, Mammoth Tank, Kit Kat, and Cindy Clawford. Went to the volcano to get charcoal, and I found this beauty of an ARK Giga, which of course was high level, and I know I said I wouldn't tame anymore, but look at that colour, I had to tame it. I grabbed my charcoal, made some gunpowder and some shotgun bullets, and cared for the Giga. Then went back to trap the wild Giga. Begun tranking her out, and the server crashed. I rejoined getting sprayed and prayed by a wild Velonosaur, but we were still alive. By nightfall, finished tranking out the ARK Giga. It had the best wild damage I've had so far. I pumped a load of narcotics in the Giga, returned to base to care for my babies. Day 59, I finished off taming the Giga, and it had 220 damage, which was the highest I've had by miles. My survivor was pretty happy about that. I named it Gigantor. Back at base, cared for the Giga, slaughtered a load more Gigas. I cooked them up for a nice snack to fill my belly. While I was on my wyvern, my game crashed again, and when I rejoined, I was dead. It's a good thing the map tells you where we die these days. I recovered my stuff. I was on the wyvern because I was scouting for a Berzino, and about 20 minutes later, my game crashed again. And when I rejoined, I was 10 HP, but at least I wasn't dead. I killed off a load of low-level Ferrozinos, but I was really struggling to find any. On the way back home, I found this high level, so I trapped it and knocked it out. Later on, tamed her up. Average stats, so I named it Fiber for Days. Day 60, I mated the Gigas and the Rexes, hatched a few Rexes, naming them Rextasy, Fossil, Rexbox Series Rex, and Mr. T. And of course, killed a couple as well. It was time to head to the Frozen Fortress and recover the artifact of the Skylord. I always dread this cave, and I was right to do so, because as soon as I got into the entrance, I got polovied and stunned off my creature, and got pounded instantly by a Yeti, and pretty much all of my armor broke. Of course, I had a Shadowmane on me, so I threw him out, as my Desmodus was running around inside, probably dying slowly. But I managed to recover him, and he was doing alright. I, on the other hand, was currently naked, so I made some makeshift cloth armor just to go in the cave. I wasn't taking no for an answer. And inside, I guess the cave repaid me for having a struggle at the entrance, as it gave me an Ascendant Desmodus saddle in a red drop. And now for the minefield. It might even be the scariest thing I've seen in ARK. I hung from the ceiling, using my weapons to kill off the tanky creatures. I then baited the walls into the corner and killed some of them off with the Desmodus. I threw up my Shadowmane so he could take all the aggro, and with our combined efforts, we took down all the Polovias, and I could safely recover artifact of the Skylord. It was safe to say my survivor had seen better days. Back at base, I cared for my T-Rexes, grinded up all my useless items so I could get some organic polymer, flew to the obelisk and crafted a load of cryopods. Day 61, I found this yummy loot crate, cared for my baby Rexes, hatched 2 Gigas that took the damage stat, naming one Lady Giga and the other Notorious GIG. I had a load more Shadowmane babies and got a health mutation from one. I named them H1, Chad the Shad, Beast Mode, Simba, Mufasa Resurrected, Swimber, and Shadowmaniac. I went to the artifact of the Hunter Cave, which was pretty simple. Flew in with the Desmodus, grabbed the artifact, threw out my Shadowmane, as I knew there's some good drops in the lake in the main part of the cave. Got some fish meat and silica pearls while I was here, and one of the drops gave me a real nice Giga Saddle blueprint. And back at base, I cared for all my babies. Day 62, I gathered a load of fibre and crafted myself one of those yummy Giga saddles, as Nicola Rage had finally matured. So what better way to test run the Giga? I went to defeat Baylor, and of course it was 1,000,000 times easier than the first attempt that we had. I finished off the day with a big meat run on my new Giga. Day 63, it was Giga care time, and time for the artifact of the Cunning Cave. Made my way there on a Basilosaurus, and inside I used the Shadowmane to kill off all the creepy crawlies. At the end of the cave, I found this dark tunnel I couldn't see anything in, and the Shadowmane couldn't fit in it. It was a pretty scary sight, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to go in there or not. But I took a step back, gathered my courage, whipped out a torch, and we went in. And it appears there was nothing to fear. It was just a dark tunnel that led to the artifact chamber. So the artifact of the cunning was surprisingly quite easy. I'll take that. As soon as I left the cave, my game crashed just before I could even put my scuba tank on. And of course, when I rejoined, I was dead. Once again, the game kills me off. And there was only one thing to do. I had to swim all the way back there on a Shadowmane from base and recover my stuff. And outside the cave, I killed some Carcanos for some organic polymer. I opened up some gacha crystals for some crystals. Cared for my Giga, gathered a load of silica pearls, crafted a load of electronics, and made another chemistry set, placing it down to end the day. Day 64, I grabbed some more fertilized Giga eggs, as I still didn't have a male, and pretty much spent the day looting a load of caves to try and find some good blueprints. Honestly, I was just desperate for a Rex Saddle blueprint at this point. And while I was in the artifact of the Hunter Cave, I saw this little opening up in the main chamber of the cave. I was intrigued by this, so I figured I'd fly up there on my Desmodus to investigate. And I soon regretted that decision, because as soon as I got up there, it was misty, I couldn't see anything, and I got poloviaed. Luckily, my creature only only got stunned and I didn't. So I could throw out my shadow mate instantly for backup. I got pinned in a corner, my Desmodus was getting pounded. I was doing everything I could to save his life, and I got pinned in a corner, but luckily I had the grappling hook. I could outsmart these Palovias, and I managed to mount my shadow mate and slap them silly. Bruce Wayne had seen better days. It was a good thing we found that Ascendant's sandal. I mined this rock only to discover a different way in and out of the cave, so it definitely wasn't worth the trouble I just endured. Back at base, claimed another baby Basosaurus, and I named him Baz. Day 65 begun with finding a lovely female 150 Ferrazino. Tranked it out, but the stats were pretty bad, so I ended up killing it. I also found a 130 female in the canyon near my base, and I always say to myself, always build traps, but I didn't for this one, and I did regret it because I was running around like a headless chicken trying to knock it out. But in the end, I did get there and knocked it out. Killed off a few more low levels. I kept the 130 Ferrazino knocked out. These cornpeas took an interest in me, so I cooked them alive. I built this horrible wooden trap as I found another high level Ferrazino, so I didn't feel like running around after this one. He ended up slicing me up and I lost most of my armor. Checked out the new Ferrazino, it didn't have great stats, so I called it meh. I returned to base to repair my armor, returned to repair my wooden trap and trank out that Ferrazino, which went a lot smoother this time. Later on I tamed it up and it actually had 8k health, which was really good, so that's why I named it. Back at base I cared for Basosaurus and went to the Bear Caverns to level up one of my shadow mains. Day 66 I built a metal trap above my base as I was planning on taming more Ferrazinos, and on that subject I found a 150, picked it up and took it back to base using my new and improved shiny metal trap. I knocked it out and the damage stats were an improvement, so I kept her asleep. She came out with 325 damage, which is what I named her. Lady Giga had finally matured, so I took her out to Baylis Cave to destroy her and got some nice level ups and did a meat run afterwards. Day 67 started out relaxed. I went to the loot cave, found absolutely nothing as per usual. Leveled up another shadow main in the Bear Caverns, finding a nice Megatherium and Mammoth Saddle in that cave. Mated the Gigas together and got some more eggs. And it was time to gear up for the artifact of the massive cave. I headed there on my Basilosaurus. When I arrived, I whipped out the pro grappling hook skills, make it to the top, which I didn't do successfully, and I ended up dying from fall damage, which was surprising. I haven't died from missing my grappling hooks in a long time. It was also very annoying, so I didn't have a sleeping bag and had no way to get back to the cave, so I had to respawn back at base and run there on a shadow main. When I returned I realised I only had grappling hooks and sleeping bags, and I didn't even bring a crossbow, so I couldn't even use the grappling hooks, so I placed the sleeping bags down anyway and drowned myself to death. Respawned again, got some more grappling hooks, actually bringing a crossbow this time, and began the marathon sprint back to the cave on another shadow main. And this time I actually recovered my stuff back quite easily and made it to the top of the cave entrance. Once inside I got picked up by Desmodus and was getting ragdolled across the whole of the cave entrance. I grapple hooked out, began shooting with my shotgun, realised that I didn't even have my armour on yet, which I quickly equipped while being attacked. Parachuted down, and at this point I was just running around like a madman, avoiding scorpions, Desmodus, you name it, everything. It was a good thing my shadow main was doing a lot better than I was right now. I don't even know why, but I didn't even bring any healing items, so I probably deserved all this pain I was enduring right now. We made it to the puzzle tomb at the back of the narrow corridors, and I threw out my baryonyx to navigate this area. Walked over some spikes and nearly died. Had to wait around for 3 years to heal up because I had no healing items, and after inputting codes incorrectly and getting ambushed, braving the dark and narrow death-defying jumps, I finally made it to the artifact chamber and we recovered artifact of the massive. And exiting the cave was 300 times easier than entering. I made it back to my army of cave entrance dwellers, and later on made it back to base safe and sound, if you can call safe and sound dying twice. Day 68 I begun looting some more caves and leveling up some more shadow mains in the Bear Caverns. I threw out some Dadons and mated them together and got this cute little guy that had a really nice colour mutation. I named him Ham Solo. Had some more shadow main babies, naming one Big Boss Man, another Felix the House Cat, and another Jennifer. I returned to the Frozen Fortress only to get pinned in a corner by a Yeti, almost died and had to panic grapple out of there, but I ended up shooting it in the back. No problems at all, wasn't close to dying or anything. I was very low on health, but I still risked my life in getting some loot crates. It was a good thing I found these fur slippers in the cave itself. Look at those things, those are what saved my life that day. Day 69 I was feeling fine. I cared for my baby Daedon, grabbed a load of shadow mains out the fridge to take them to the Broodmother cave. Fought these two alpha raptors on the beach, which gave them a nice couple of levels. levels. Threw them out of the terminal and leveled them up as much as possible. I took this Rex and the bear cannons to level it up and sat down at my base to chill out, as the last couple of days have been pretty hectic. Day 70 I hatched a load more Gigas. I still had no mail, so I ended up killing all of them, including some Rexes. I cooked them all up for prime meat, which I'll feed to the Daedon at some point. And I'm more than happy to announce that this was the day that we finally found ourselves a Rex saddle blueprint, a nice mastercraft in the Aberration Loot Cave. It only took us about 80 cave runs, but we got there in the end, didn't we? Back at base, I crafted myself the Rex saddle and returned to the Broodmother cave to throw out the rest of my creatures. I was ready to go technically, but I did promise the wife that she could join me on this boss fight adventure. Ham Solo had finally matured. I tried to level him up, but bless him, he was not packing much of a punch. Day 71, the wife was finally online and we were ready for the Broodmother. I had to teach her how to use the Shadowmane Courage Roar so she could buff our army. She jumped on the Daedon and we travelled to the Broodmother cave. And it was time for our first official boss fight, which was very easy. Our army did not take much damage at all. Back at base, I placed a flag down on our bridge so we looked like the ultimate badasses. Took full advantage of the wife being online. She gathered a load of wood on Woody while I gathered a load of stone on the Doedicurus. I crafted a load of stone walls for gacha taming. Farmed a load of obsidian while searching for a Pharazino, which I did not find. Day 72, I mated the Gigas once again and finally had an egg that was a male with the damage stat. I killed off the other baby and cooked him up to fill my belly. I chucked all the stone structures on the mammoth and travelled to Vanaheim to tame up a gacha. I found a 145, tamed it up and named him Gacha Loot. I also found another high level, tamed it up and named it Polymer, as it produced polymer. Back at base, I farmed a load more stone and crafted a load more stone structures, as I promised I would take the wives to show her how to tame a gacha, and I just used all the stone structures on taming my own too, but she doesn't have to know I did that. Day 73, I got stuck in a baby Giga, so I killed it off while my wife sat on Ham Solo to level it up. I hatched that other Giga that had the damage stat and named him Nicholas Rage. Returned to the Broodmother cave to grab some Shadowmanes, and me and the wife teleported to Asgard in hopes to defeat Haiti and Skull. We summoned them up, and I forgot to cryopod my Desmodus, which happily went into battle while I was panicking the whole time because I was so scared he was going to die. But luckily we weren't taking any chances. We had a right party of creatures here to defeat these guys. Me and the wife travelled to Vanaheim as promised so I could show her how to tame a gacha. I found a level 145. I showed her how to drop the stone structures in front of it, and shortly after she ended up taming it up. And she named it Akuzukin Gacha. I don't know what that means. And back at base I cared for my baby Giga. Day 74, it was time to craft the tech replicator. I began building a nice platform for it, leading off from my bridge, and made it look aesthetically pleasing with all those metal railings. It was looking pretty nice. I gathered a load of cement paste, obsidian, and while out on the metal run, I spotted this 135 female Pharazino. Back at base, I crafted a load of polymer, returned back to pick up the Pharazino. I managed to trap her and trank her out, and it turns out it wasn't worth the trouble as the stats were not great, so I ended up killing it. I cared for my baby Giga, loaded up the archery with all the resources I gathered, headed to the obelisk, and I finally crafted the tech replicator and placed it down at base. It was looking beautiful. Day 75, I was out looking for a Pharazino for about half an hour before I even found one. Ended up finding this level 140 away from my base. I opted for the flap attack flippity flop, don't stop, trank and repeat tactic, which worked a treat. She fled and I knocked her out and had a pretty decent wild damage stat, so I pumped a load of biotoxin in her and some kibble. Flew around again for ages trying to look for another Pharazino while I was here, but didn't find anything. Tamed her up and she came out with 331 damage, which is still the best I had so far, and that's what I named her. On returning back to base, I spotted this Pharazino right above it, and it is rare that they spawn in this area, and it ended up being a level 145, so of course I trapped and tranked him out also, and this one had 240 wild damage, which was amazing. That was the best I've had by a mile. Tamed him up and he ended up having 378 base damage. I now had a good health and good damage stat for a Pharazino, and back at base I was excited to make them all together. Sadly they were both the same sex. I had to try and get the 8k health into any kind of female, which I could then mate with the male to get the damage and the health together, so we had a journey ahead of us, and the baby was a male, so I shot it in the face. Day 76, I made the Pharazinos and killed a Pharazino because it didn't take my stats. I went to the Aberration Cave to farm some loot crates, and this Carno headbutted me off a cliff into a Carcanos pincers. When I returned to base, my tribe mate gifted me this beautiful penguin. We picked up our otters, I cared for Nicholas Rage, and we teleported to Jotunheim for the first time. The plan was to fight Steinborn. He was the only mini boss I was really afraid of. Placed some sleeping bags down and we brought an absolute army. And I remembered to cryopod Bruce Wayne this time. I was using Lady Giga because she's an absolute beast. And let's be honest, he didn't have a chance. Day 77 begun with mating the fairies once again. I got a male egg and then the server crashed and we had a rollback. So I got to mate my fairies all over again. And this time I got a female with the health stat. And begun making Lazarus chowder for kibble. Later on, gathered a load of honey and made as much kibble as I possibly could, as I wanted to tame a couple of rhinos, which I did knock out a couple, but they weren't good enough to tame. Day 78, I crafted up some absorbent substrate and made myself a gas mask. Grabbed Rudy the Explorer and Average Joe, which I have still not ridden to this day. It was time for the artifact of the brute. I got to the cave, got picked by a Desmodus at the entrance, which we knew was possibly going to happen anyway. One picked me up and took me towards the front of the cave. I kind of lost my bearings, didn't have a clue where I was when he dropped me, just ran in any direction, which happened to be outside the cave, and of course the cave loading times again, the cave loading times. I came back, this Desmodus had taken me above the ocean, which was great. There's only one way to go from here, and that is down, right next to a Megalodon, and unfortunately for me, he was not in the mood to make friends, but luckily I did make it to shore, so we hadn't even got inside the cave yet, and I was already nearly dead, but luckily I brought healing items with me this time, so I learned from my mistakes. After that, the cave went swimmingly. I grappled over to the artifact in the main chamber, and boom, we had the artifact of the brute. Day 79, I gathered as much hide as Nicholas Rage could possibly carry, because I need to make so many saddles now. Then back at base, I crafted a couple of Rex saddles. Grabbed my army and cryopods, and we travelled to the Megapithecus terminal. It was time to fight the Megapithecus, the King Kong of ARK. Inside the arena, I split up my forces, made a large circle with my Rex at the back, baited in the Megapithecus with a cheeky shotgun shot to the face, and he came in running. He didn't have a chance, he was sandwiched. We defeated him in a few minutes and didn't take any losses. Day 80, I mated the Ferrosians once again, got a stock up on all those eggs, and I travelled around the Arctic searching for rhinos to tame. I did knock a load of them out and kill a load off, but none of them were up to my standards. I was beginning to lose all hope for these rhinos, but then I did knock one out that had quite decent damage, so I spike walled it up and tamed them up later in the day, and it tamed up with a whopping 355 damage, which is a great damage stat, so that's what I named him. Day 81, I begun knocking out high level mammoths, as I figured they'd be quite good assets to use for the dragon boss fight. I also had a nice Deinonychus baby, which I named
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
This mammoth was taking quite a while to tame up, and I ended up knocking out a rhino also. The mammoth finally tamed, and sadly he wasn't going to be a close friend of mine. He only had 336 damage. Spent the rest of the day killing off a load of mammoths, so I couldn't find any more high levels. Day 82, I mated the Ferrosinos once again. I mated my otters together, and the baby was gonna pop out with the damage stat, which is great. I tried mating them previously a million times and they just wouldn't take the damage. I also wanted to find an oviraptor, as the mating interval was really killing off my progress in breeding my Ferrosino army. I found one across the other side of the map, bowlered it and tranked it out. Crafted a sanguine elixir and begun feeding it some Rex eggs. I was halfway through taming it and realised I didn't have enough eggs to tame it, so I had to return back to base and grab more Rex eggs. As I was constantly to and fro back and forth to base, of course I forgot about the otter baby. I teleported straight back to base. I managed to claim him. He took his first few steps in life, and those were the last steps he took. My poor baby otter. And I couldn't mate them again for at least nearly 6 hours. I was also still struggling to get the Ferrosino stats, and the babies kept being males. On the plus point though, I did tame up the oviraptor, and I named him Give Me Eggs Quicker. I knocked out this high level rhino, and after tame, the health on the rhino was 4,800. Day 83 and 84 was more of the same, and it was not going well. More male fairy eggs and no stats for me. However, I did have a baby rhino that had a nice mutation with a colourful face. Went on another rampage through the Arctic to gather a load of hide, and of course was checking all mammoth levels because I was still looking for those tanky mammoths. I gathered some honey and back at base made some sweet veggie cakes. Teleported to Asgard and found a nice sheep to tame, and I named him Meaty. I then had a massive mammoth party and knocked 3 out in a row, and one tamed up with 6,100 health, which is pretty decent. Day 85, I tried mating the otters and didn't get the stats, so I cancelled them. I had another baby rhino and called him Battering Ram, and made a load of extraordinary kibble. I also finally had some fairy babies that took the stats. It was a male, but at least I can mate that with all the other females. I spent most of the afternoon scouting the Arctic looking for beautiful furry mammoths to tame, and I found some good ones. ones and knocked out a couple of them. Later on, taming them up, 6,400 health on one, and then tamed a beast, 384 damage. This will be my damage stat. Day 86, I finished off taming the last mammoth, and it tamed up with 7,100 health, and those were my stats I was going to work with. I did the last care on battering ram and mated my new mammoths together, and the baby didn't take the stats, so I shot him in the face. I took battering ram, and I found a worthy opponent to try him out on, this Alpha Kana, which was a level 140. Did some drive-bys on him, and then got bored, so just went toe-to-toe with him. He had no chance, and he gave me a nice load of raw prime meat. So back at base, I cooked up a storm, crafted a load of narcs and medical brews with the berries I had gathered. Day 87, I shot a mammoth in the face and had a baby Ferrazino with the stats, and it was a female. I now had a female and a male breeder with the stats. I travelled to Jotunheim to tame up some more sheep and ended up taming 3 high level ones. And of course, this gave me a good excuse to gather a load of hide too. I named them Sean the Sheep, Woolly Jumper and Miss Sheep. Mated them together, and I got a baby named Lamb Chops, and the Maywin took care of them for me. Day 88, I finally had a baby otter that I didn't kill, and I named her Ascendant Scarf and placed her in the Maywing. My tribe mate was somewhere on the map getting himself killed and his creatures killed. Gathered a ton of wood on Woody and a load of fibre on Fibre for Days. Crafted a load of cryopods and some Ferrazinosaurus saddles. Had to gather more metal on Flint Eastwood and then crafted more Ferrazino saddles to end the day. Day 89, I came online and my penguin was having a fight with a max level Daedon and taking on a piranha at the same time. This guy thinks he's Rocky Balboa. I wasn't complaining though, best guard dog I've ever had, but I did throw him back in the base where he belongs. Had some baby Ferrazinos. I named one Edward and named the other Miss Tickles. Had another baby otter and named him Sir Otterlot, and a baby mammoth named Woody Ellen. Dropped to the volcano and gathered some sulphur. It was time to head to the Magmasaur pit. As I hadn't done anything like this on this map yet, I dived straight into the Magmasaur pit, hopped off my Desmodus real quick and grabbed the egg and got out nice and swiftly. Of course, I hatched the baby back at base. Day 90 to 92, I had more baby Ferrazinos to take care of and also started to level up my Ferrazinos in the bear caverns. My wife went on a killing spree at base while I sat on Woody Ellen to level her up, and my tribemate decided to whistle follow all in the base, which made a right mess of my creatures and just left me to sort them all out. My baby Magmasaur had matured, and the plan was to just leave him at these metal rocks in my base and I gather them every time I come online. I had some more baby fairies, naming them Jada Smith and Charlie's Ferrazino. Went out on the rhino to gather food for them, and then this happened and I had no clue how my baby just died. I was scared. I wasted no time at all. I began sprinting back to base at the speed of sound, and when I got back to base, the other one popped up. Charlie's Ferrazino, rest in peace. I had no idea what was happening, and when I arrived at the crime scene, it was astonishing what I witnessed. They were outside the Maywing's trough range, and they were both females, so it did really hurt me. I recruited the wife and took out my frustrations on this Alpha T-Rex, which was near our base, and we begun slapping it, and we slapped it so hard, poof! Disappeared into thin air. The game just didn't want me to have fun today. My tribemate goes to sleep in real life and asks me to care for his babies, so I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do that. I rock up at his base and he's literally got about 60 creatures all inside each other. What kind of father goes to bed without feeding his babies? And the next day, I had more Ferrazino babies. I had to bring them back. Charlie's Ferrazino 2 and Jada Smith returns. And a male named Will Smith. Of course, Will Smith, the legend of the slap attack. And also had this beautiful baby mammoth that had a blue tusk mutation, and spent the end of the day gathering metal on Flint Eastwood and Sky. Day 93 to 96, over these few days I managed to pop out a lot of Ferrazinos, giving them scary names like Barry Chuckle, Slasher, Deathclaw, Got My Nails Done, The Tickler,
I will find you and I will
tickle you, Mr. Cuddles, Angry Vegetarian, I Give Free Hugs, Banter Claws, Scratch That, and Slap Attack. It's a bit late in the journey, but I did finally knock out an anglerfish, dropped a snake onto my Basilosaurus, and went in with the sword to slice him up for some prime meat, which tamed up my anglerfish after a while. I named him Pearls Are Yummy. I also had a baby mammoth with the blue tusks, and I named him Blue Tusk. A lot of these days were spent in the bear caverns leveling up all my Ferrazinos, so we can get them as strong as possible, as I always fear in the next boss fight, I'm not gonna lie. Back at base, the wife was on a killing spree once again, and I got involved too. I thought I'd slice and dice fix this baby Rex up for dinner. Day 97, I finished crafting off the rest of the Therizinosaurus saddles in the tech replicator, gathered some honey and made as many sweet vegetable cakes as I possibly could. I travelled to the volcano in hopes to grab wyvern milk. As you may guess, it's dragon boss fight day. We need to utilise all advantages possible in the game, as the dragon is a real powerhouse. I went to grab the artifacts out of the vault and realised I still hadn't got the artifact of the immune, so headed to the Mount Doom cave and grabbed the artifact. Easy peasy. I met my tribe mates at the terminal. My tribe mate had brought his ex-woolly rhino and my wife was going to ride ham solo. We threw out our army and we were ready to take on this beast. We had 2 mammoths and the rest were Therizinos. The plan was to send the mammoths in at the front to take damage while the Therizinos attacked from behind. I had them all in tame routes so I could command them a lot easier. I'll be riding the UT of course. We made sure they all had sweet veggie cakes in their inventory and fed some wyvern milk to the mammoths. It is time to face our destiny. This is what I had been preparing for. If I lose my army, there's no guarantee I could finish the mission. We did defeat the dragon boss. Being as the army suffered no loss, I figured that maybe I was just over exaggerating this boss fight. However, when I looked at my creatures, they were all below half health, and I was right to be scared of this boss. Definitely one of the hardest bosses in the game. Day 98, I'd begun refertilizing my crops, as I used quite a lot the day before. I teleported back to the dragon terminal so I could recover my army, and as soon as I teleported, I crashed out as I saw a load of Daedons on screen, which is never ideal. And when I rejoined the server, I was dead. Again, once again, killed by the game. I tried teleporting back there naked, and that did not go well. It sounded like I was in a mosh pit, and I was pretty scared for my Desmodus at the moment. So I hopped on Peter Griffin and flew back there. Managed to get there in time and whistle my Desmodus out. He was pretty damaged, but I guess the Ascendant saddle worked wonders again on this one. And I ground pounded their party to finish them off. Day 99 was the final day for prep, as our journey is nearing an end. The day started by crafting a load of sweet veggie cakes and leveling up the rest of the Therizinos. Me and my army marched across the harsh terrain to make it to the obelisk. We didn't really, but I made it look that way. For some strange reason, I went into the Mount Doom cave thinking I needed the artifact. I don't know why I did this. I literally have no idea, but I went in there. I grabbed the artifact of the immune once again, and when I exited the cave, I had a nice tow of Desmodus chasing me. And I was just thinking, you ain't catching me. I'll see you later. And then the game. I got hit by the loading of the game again. 20 seconds later, I was in a Desmodus grasp. I was firing frantically to save my life, but my shotgun wasn't even doing any damage either. I wasn't getting hit markers on them or anything. And that was me dead again. The game kills me off 2 days in a row. And we're back to that thing again where we grab the griffin and fly all the way back, ground pound the hostiles and recover my stuff. I then chilled for the rest of the night, sitting out on my chair with my ascendant scarf, pondering my thoughts of how beautiful this map is, and took the scenery in for what it was. That's just what I need when the game kills me off over and over and over again. Day 100 is the day that we either become winners or losers. I made these shiny tech canteens as I wanted to go out in style, and me being a good husband made sure the wife had all the gear she needed for a boss fight. Finished off making a load of sweet veggie cakes, and it was time. Me and the wife flew to the obelisk on Orange Adrian. We were ready for our final hurdle. Sometimes it's nice just to appreciate those little things, and this is what we were greeted with on our final day. I got to the obelisk and realised I didn't bring any trophies with me, so I had to go all the way back to base, made it back to the terminal, making sure our Therizinos and mammoths all had their veggie cakes. Ham Solo had all his cooked prime meat ready to go in case he gets a bit peckish. And it was time. We were finally here to take on Femra Sulfur. Mission accomplished. I checked out my creatures after and most of them were pretty much full health. What a bunch of champions. Back at base I placed the wall mount and then threw a cryopod at it with a mammoth in it. With our new decor install, we all took the time to appreciate its beauty and how much we looked like the ultimate badasses. I placed down the Femra Sulfur flag alongside the other flags on our bridge, and not to mention we finally tamed ourselves a Fenrir. It's been a long time coming and it's a thing of beauty. What a cool creature. Now let's get the beer rolling and let the celebrations commence. And that is how we spent the rest of the night, and will conclude my 100-day journey through the map of Fjordur. It's been a run. I really enjoyed making this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. If you did have a laugh and found it entertaining, please do consider liking, commenting and subscribing for more ARK content. And now we get to see our beautiful base in all its glory.